All right, welcome to the Two Sons Podcast. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great week. Really quickly, before we get started, it would mean a lot to us if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button. Later on today, we're going to be recording our reaction to Bane 3, but as usual, you and I have things to bitch and moan about after this past week.
Weekly recap.
Yeah. Hey, nothing better than what happened last night to the Denver Broncos, or what almost happened to the Denver Broncos, we should say, because this is something that you and I have been arguing about forever.
This is Jason's big bugaboo about sports right now.
It is. So I am deeply bothered by the fact that let me actually reframe this around basketball.
Okay.
You know what I love about basketball? Basketball players determine the outcome of basketball games. It's pretty great.
Dude, the fact that you call... Okay, so what we're arguing about is Jason, in his heart of hearts, believes that there should be no kicking of footballs in the game of football, which is absolutely insane. And he says that kickers are not football players, which I 100% disagree with. But, Jason, I want to hear your take. And then I'll tell you why
they
you're
are
wrong.
Football players. They're just specialists. Have you seen the? I think I said it to you. The SNL skit where they're like.
Oh, I have seen it.
Like, we will call it football, but there will be very little. He's like, is there any kicking in football? And he's like, there's a little bit of kicking.
There's a little bit of kicking.
He's like, how much is it worth? Sometimes one, sometimes three.
Yeah. Aren't they making fun of when colonial times?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, like how long is a foot? 12 inches. Okay, like how many feet are in a yard?
5,280
in a mile.
It's so funny.
A nice round number of 5,000 something. Dude, honestly.
How could you ever forget that?
Yeah, I know. The other day I legit looked at Elena, was like, how many feet are in a mile? And she's like, 5,000 something. It's like, why? Like, if anybody knows why that's honestly like what we picked, please tell
I don't
me.
get it.
Dude, actually,
all things that Americans do, the what do we call our system? It's not the
imperial.
The imperial system.
Right?
Yeah, I don't
Standard.
know.
We don't even know.
Yeah, whatever we call our bizarro
not metric.
No, last night, so we had Friendsgiving last night, and I was working while Carly was doing it. So like I finally get done with work and I go out in the room and I just grab like a sparkling water and I'm like, hey, I got to go get ready. And she's like getting the two dishes, like the carrots and mashed potatoes or whatever ready. And then she's like, how many teaspoons are in a tablespoon?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
some.
Hey Siri.
It's definitely smaller.
Yeah, and it was 3. It's 3 teaspoons that go in a tablespoon, in case you were wondering.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I almost guessed 3. Mm-hmm. Dude, before we start talking about football, actually, there has been some proposed ideas in the United States, like, over time to get rid of our stupid measuring system and to go completely metric. And I am 100% for that. Like, I understand, like, it would cost a lot of money to do that, but it's totally doable. And as like a woodworker, I can tell you I use centimeters versus inches whenever I possibly can.
Really? That's super interesting.
Dude, you know what?
Luke, by the way, is like a really good woodworker. And I mean, like
thanks, Jay.
I think there's this, Luke can do some. No. He's like legitimately an insanely good woodworker who's deeply meticulous. And like that's actually super interesting to me.
Dude, and primarily anytime that I have to divide something into thirds or even halves, like I cannot tell you how big of a pain in the ass it is to try and divide, let's say, inches, 7 inches,
3/8 or
15/16.
Yeah, 15/16.
Like, what are we even doing at that point? So literally, I just go to my other side of my tape measure and like, okay, like what's half of 422 centimeters? You know what I mean? It's so much easier.
Would it really be that complicated though to change? Wouldn't it just be like basically educational programs and then essentially swapping out street signals with both? Then essentially within 2 generations it would overlap?
Where it's a problem, which it's already changing, is like envision going to the auto store and being like, I need a bolt that's 3/4 inch. And they're like, well, you don't really do that anymore. Even though they'd obviously have to. What the big change would be, which a lot of things are already going this way, like literally half of my tools in my workshop use standard or metric versus imperial. Like, and so like with an Allen wrench, like legitimately you don't even know until you start to mess with it and you're like, oh, this is metric. And then you have to like switch it out, right?
Yeah.
But like, so they've already started doing that. But I think that's where the cost would be, is like things that are already built within our infrastructure, especially like our vehicles, where I think could be, like
unfeasible
to change.
Yeah, like if I had a 1987 Toyota Tacoma that I love driving around in, and I couldn't replace this shock because I couldn't find the bolt that I needed.
So that's where it'd be a problem. Anyways, back to kicking.
Yes. So basically, to set the stage, last night, Denver Broncos, Buffalo Bills.
Which, by the way, the Bills are just struggling.
The Bills
right
are
now.
playing some shitty football right now. We have a
Josh
pick 'em
Allen.
league, and all 4 of us picked the Bills. Not our brightest moment. So anyway, it's 15-15. The Broncos score a touchdown, and Will Lutz smokes the extra point. Okay, then the Bills go down. A little bootleg from Josh Allen out to the left. He scores a touchdown, ties the game. Their kicker goes out. Luke and I jokingly refer to these guys as nerds for the sake of this debate. Like,
yes.
Our nerd is better than your nerd. Now, to be clear,
by the way,
these guys are not nerds. They are professional athletes. They are excellent at their jobs. I would even call them football players in some loose context.
Dude, Pat McAfee would kick your ass.
I agree. And Pat McAfee, much better athlete than me. Anyway, the Will Lutz smokes the extra point. The Bills go down. They score a touchdown. They don't smoke their extra point. And so Denver is in this position now where they're trailing by 1, even though they've played equally good football, if not arguably outplayed the Bills a little bit.
I think so.
They work their way down the field and they get into field goal range again off of this really interesting play where it's 4th down and Russell Wilson basically gets immediate pressure up the middle and just a really smart play on his part, just deliberately underthrows his receiver.
Yeah.
And essentially causes that classic dynamic where the DB's got his head turned and he's running full speed and the receiver comes back to the ball. It's like you got to call it. It's the receiver's coming back to the ball. The dude basically tees off on him. It's a clear-cut PI, right? Yeah. Gets him into field goal range. Work the clock down.
Pass interference, for everyone that knows or doesn't know, that's a huge penalty in the NFL because it's not a 15-yard penalty. It's legitimately where the foul occurred.
Exactly.
So it's that's a massive just.
It went from being dead to rights, literally not only 4th down, but you're in Russell Wilson's face and no one's open.
Yeah.
And going from there to essentially being in field goal range. So anyway, they work the clock down. Will Lutz goes out for an easy field goal. I don't remember the distance. It was like 38 yards or 42 yards or something. It was a field goal you'd expect him to make about 95% of the time. And not only that, a chance for him to make up for the fact that he's missed. I think he had missed 2 extra points in the game, but he had missed the big one there when it was 15.
That's right.
He shanks the field goal. Okay. So Denver
It was
loses,
a little windy, slightly right. This wasn't ended up in the water boy's hands type shank. This is a slight miss.
It was a little windy.
Yeah,
I cut him some slack. But anyway, he misses the field goal. But the Bills have 12 men on the field. DeMar Hamlin ends up being the 12th man.
Dude, I know.
Tough luck. Okay.
Very tough luck.
Will Lutz gets a third opportunity to not screw his team over, and he puts the
through the uprights.
So now let me kind of paint a picture of an alternate reality where Will Lutz misses the third field goal too. Okay.
What?
So in this case, the Bills and the Broncos would have played a game of football in which the Broncos' offense and defense was clearly better.
Okay.
By some small amount, but a discernible amount. But this other dude who basically does something entirely different than any other position group on the field couldn't do his job.
Okay.
And now the outcome of the game would have been flipped by that. So
not a good
why
enough
would that
argument
be
for me.
Imagine LeBron James versus Steph Curry, Game 6 of the Western Conference Semis last year, and it's 99-99 with 13 seconds left, and LeBron and Steph both go over to their benches. And out comes,
2 nerds holding their Beyblades. And then they Beyblade battle each other.
And literally,
either that or rock, paper, scissors.
Steph Curry's in the post game presser answering questions about how his Beyblader didn't do his job. I'm saying it's
I get your point. Here's why I think it's legit. At some point in sports, dude, sports, if you really think about it, are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
I envision this is how the creation of basketball went. It's you and I are bored. We just got done baling hay and we're in a barn and there's a basket on the second level and I'm just bored and just throw something into the basket. And then you go, I'm very competitive. I think I can do that better than you, pal. And then we literally start botting each other up, trying to throw this ball into this basket on the second floor of a barn. I honestly don't know how basketball is created. Dude, the same thing with football. at some point, dudes were like, yeah, and then what we're going to do is we're going to kick this ball through like these uprights, and that's going to be the sport. So like I'm such a traditionalist, even in like my day-to-day life, like that like I feel like never will I want to get rid of
because it's just
kicking
part
in
of the
football.
game.
It's literally it's part of the game. The other thing too is like, what would you have, like what would be the scenario if field goal kicking wasn't an option? Like how would you go about that? Would you just have to go for the Hail Mary? Like, is that something you'd have to do, or would you just have to try and like run it in from like the 30-yard line?
So here's my
like, what's the argument?
Here's my breakdown of how I would fix the kicking problem in the NFL. It's really this simple to me. When you score a touchdown, you get 7 points, unless you choose to go for 2, in which case you can either get 6 or 8, depending on the outcome of the play.
Okay.
On the actual field goal kicking situation. So let's say the exact same situation that the Broncos were in. Mm-hmm. You're down 22-21, and you're driving down the field. You would need to be able to trade a down and at least some amount of time on the clock, so you couldn't do it with 0-0. But you'd be able to trade it down and some time on the clock for 3 points as long as you were inside of the opponent's 25-yard line.
Oh, my
okay?
gosh.
So hear me out.
Dude, then you have an automatic win if you get within...
Yeah, it's like a second end zone. But how is that any different? How is that any different than getting into that area and then having your nerd come out onto the field and kick a field goal?
That would have to be for me to even be like remotely interested in that. That would have to be like the smallest sliver of field where I would feel like that would be okay. Like it would have to be within like the 5-yard line.
But field goals are kicked from 60 yards sometimes.
Well, maybe we should keep them.
See, this is the fair point. Here's the thing. There's no doubt that from a drama and television product standpoint, kicking is excellent television.
Oh, dude, it's great.
Last night was literally like watching a train wreck in live action, and the whole time you're like, this is beautiful.
I know. Dude, that's NFL. Like, low scoring. You're like, man, this is a great game.
Yeah, this is...
No, dude, the Cardinals game, like, I had so much excitement watching my Cardinals finally win a football game, which that's a whole nother issue, actually. And it was like super exciting to see us like have an opportunity to kick a field goal and actually do that, like, and actually win a game. Like it was really fun to witness that.
It was a fun to watch game.
It's good.
I would just argue it disrupts the outcome of games and gives you a lot more games where the best football team doesn't necessarily win.
True. But dude, that's sports, man.
It is. It's true. There's definitely an element of that. I feel like
that's what makes sports interesting.
You're right,
dude. That's one of the reasons why I find football so much better than like watching horse racing. Mm-hmm. Like in horse racing, like I know that there's some major underdogs that win. That's not the argument, but most of the time there's a pretty good idea as far as who's going to win in horse racing, right? Mm-hmm. And like there's a lot of factors and stuff. Like, is the horse sick? Like, how far did they have to travel? Is this the first time they're running on turf? Like, a lot of factors. What jockeys, riding them? But like in football, it's like those variables turned up 100 degrees. Mm-hmm. There's so many variables in football and basketball, and that's one of the reasons why they're such incredible sports. Even baseball, dude. Somehow the Diamondbacks make it to the World Series this year. It's like, what? It's because of all the variables.
Mm-hmm. That's baseball definitely has the most variables out of any sport that I can think of, where like you can literally have a hard hit ball that's an out, and then you can have a some dinky grounder that goes in the right spot, true. And it's a base hit.
It's baseball's
like,
pretty random.
Even like fly balls in the outfield, there are different spots where it could be a double, whereas it's an easy, a fly out for the right fielder.
Dude, also baseball is absolutely bizarro because none of the fields are the same. Like, talk about variability.
Well, did you know that soccer's like that too, though?
No.
I learned this from Ted Lasso. But
what?
All the soccer fields are different sizes in Europe. Isn't that crazy?
Stop.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
That's crazy.
No
right?
way.
Shout out Ted Lasso, dude.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Watch that. Like all the producers of that. Like, can you believe that people actually believe in this shit? Where we told them that all the soccer fields are different sizes, and people are running around saying this now. No, I believe you. I believe you though.
I want to hear your guys' opinion though. If you think that that football could do without kicking, I want to hear it in the comments. If you pro Luke's side of this,
if any comment that we've asked you to make, like, please make this one, because I want to just shove it in Jason's face.
So I was watching a Instagram clip from my buddy Mark Titus, who works at Barstool Sports, and he had this. I wish I could remember his name, but one of his friends on. Another Barstool employee, and he made this interesting take the other day. He goes like, most NFL games are bad games. Meaning, like, let's just take last night, for example.
Okay.
Like, if you love football the way we love football,
Sure.
then we can sit and enjoy that game. Don't
Right,
get me
right.
wrong. Like, I enjoy an ugly football game.
Yeah.
But, like, there are a lot of ugly football games where, like, you know, for instance, Aaron Rodgers could be playing for the Jets, and it could be against, you know, let's just say the New York Giants, and let's say that the Giants made some sort of trade and they had a good quarterback instead of Daniel Jones. Okay, so there you have two good quarterbacks standing behind two atrocious offensive lines.
Yeah.
Okay, that is going to be a horrible game to watch because all game long it's going to be like another third and 8. And here's Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball at the foot of a receiver who's triple covered.
Right.
You know, because like literally has no time for anything to
Either
develop.
that or he's sacked 4 times in the first quarter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like there's some truth to that because I would argue that like the NBA lacks urgency. But the actual like day-to-day basketball product is more consistently entertaining just in terms of like what's happening on the screen. It's an urgency thing. And that's the thing is like football has so much working for it in terms of urgency.
Correct.
And even some of like the physical element of it, the visceral, you know, kind of violent nature of the game. But it does get ugly sometimes. Which I do think it is amazing how much of a mass appeal it has considering how many football games are ugly. I thought that was a super interesting take.
Dude, it is. No, I totally, yeah. I'm down for the ugly football game, like what you just said. Like I'm all for it. Versus like an ugly basketball game, like those are tough to watch.
College basketball games, dude. Oh, okay.
College basketball games.
This is actually a really nice transition. So we put on our list of things that we wanted to hit from this past week. So University of Arizona is now the 3rd ranked team in the country according to the AP poll and the coaches poll.
Which, take that with a huge grain of salt because it's college basketball and they played like 1 or 2 games. Yeah,
I think they played 3. So quick
and
background.
we literally went from 17 to 3 overnight. Like that's pretty aggressive.
So I'm from Tucson, born and raised originally. Luke is from Prescott, Arizona, which is about 3.5 hours to the north of here, or about an hour and a half north of Phoenix. Okay. And to give you guys an idea, the University of Arizona men's basketball team is basically the professional sports team in Tucson.
Yes.
Like the football team has been bad for so long, although shout out the Arizona Wildcats,
Yeah.
bowl eligible this year, 8-3, another huge win over Colorado. I think they're 7-3, and they have 2 games left. They play Utah and they play Arizona State.
Yeah.
And if they win those both, like they still have this.
They can make it to the championship.
They can, but it would require Oregon to drop 2 games, which isn't going to happen. But
sports, variability.
Sports, yeah. Hey, we just need Oregon's nerd to make a bunch of mistakes down the stretch of the season. So anyway, but the basketball team more or less has been, it's like those of you guys who live in real sports towns know the feeling, but it's like it's a conversational topic. But like you go to the dentist, you can talk to him about the Arizona basketball team. You got like I did a job interview at this company one time and literally like got in with the dude who was interviewing me just because I could talk Arizona basketball with him. Like you have that ability.
To your point, like we because I'm building a new table at our house, and so we sold my old table, and we're literally lugging this massive table out. And I'm like, hey, what about those Wildcats? And then we're like carrying this table out, and the guy's like, yeah, they're pretty good. Like,
dude,
that
that's
love
what's
guy
so weird about
sick.
sports. To your point,
dude, like we're literally like just straining over this table.
And it's
a
one
solid
of those
wood table,
solid 2x8s,
Dude,
across the top, and like solid legs,
ridiculously heavy. And like we're talking basketball to some guy I've never met before, and some guy we'll never talk to again. Anyways,
so that's the way Arizona basketball is. So like I will say, because I followed this team pretty religiously outside of just the last couple of years, because one, Sean Miller, in my opinion, is a scumbag. It's a long story, but one of my friends actually played for him and he lied to him. It's a whole thing. So anyway,
Sean Miller is a previous basketball coach for the University of Arizona.
By the way, disgracefully let go by the U of A for breaking rules and all this other stuff. Now he's at Xavier. But so we get Tommy Lloyd from Gonzaga, a guy who basically was working under Mark Few forever, and just an excellent basketball coach. And I don't actually watch college basketball that closely because of my job. I don't have the time. But I know some people who do that I trust, and I was talking with one of them, Sam Vecini, who works for The Athletic, and he actually watched the Duke-Arizona game from the same way that I do when I'm working. So like he watched it very closely from a tactical approach, and basically he said Tommy Lloyd just coached circles around John Shire in that game. And he actually pulled some clips and showed how like there was this specific big dude who played for Duke that we just completely ignored down the stretch of the game and left him alone to double team wherever the ball was and like all this other stuff that was messing up Duke's offense and getting us going. And then the other part of it is like this particular lineup, they've got a bunch of specific archetypes of players that I really like.
Yes.
Like we have Caleb Love, which is like your irrational confidence guard, which I think is like something you have to have in order to be like a team that has a chance to win in the tournament. You have to have an irrational confidence guard.
Because they have to get a little hot.
Yeah, they have to get hot. They have to be crazy enough to take the big shot, but at the same time smart enough to make the right play if it's there. He made a huge pass at the end of the Duke game underneath the basket for a foul.
His free throw shooting at the end of the game was incredible.
Yes.
What I also like about him, before you talk about the next player, is like I love the fact that he's played at grand stages already. Like he came from UNC, which is a massive basketball program. Like, the fact that he moved from UNC to U of A is absolutely absurd, and it's totally cool to have him on the team.
Absolutely. And like when you couple that too with the fact that he's a kind of a top tier athlete for a guard, like he's a very athletic guard, which that is specifically important when it comes to like contending at the point of attack defensively, holding up on the glass. Like there's a bunch of specific things he can do that a lot of guards struggle with. And then when you go to Boswell and Larson, these are two basically like top tier athletes at their position as well that are like excellent perimeter defenders, but also both of them can shoot. And that's important because we've had versions of this where we have really good perimeter defenders on the team that can't knock down a shot.
Very
to save their
even
life.
keel as well.
Yes.
Like Boswell is like, what, 18 years old? Are you kidding? He was playing at 17 last year. So now he's got like a little bit of experience under his belt. He's a sophomore, right?
Yeah, he's a sophomore.
Yeah, and then he's like running this offense, and he's doing it so calmly and confidently. And dude, he can take the ball in, my guy.
Yeah, that reverse finish he had when he took that bump. So that's the difference between him and Caleb Love and Pelle Larsson, because like Larson's more of your like traditional like kind of, you know, like we've had a bunch of these at Arizona, like Josh Green, Nick Johnson, like they're like 6'3", kind of like built strong two guards. But like Boswell is more of like a wide body. Like he's I haven't seen his weight, but I'm sure he's about 220 pounds ish. Like he's a big, strong guard. That specifically helps because like this lineup technically is a little small. It's like a 3-guard lineup before we get to Keyshawn Johnson, who's this like, to me, like this reincarnation of Andre Iguodala, just this like long-armed, freaky athlete that just plays hard all the time and can like do all this little stuff offensively. And then Omar Ballo, who was basically a development project brought over from Gonzaga with Tommy Lloyd, who has done a really nice job just kind of like polishing up some of the specific things he used to struggle with, making passes out of the post, the little right-handed jump hook, and then his free throw shooting looks to be better this year compared to where it was. And so when I look at that core group of 5 guys, that actually checks more boxes than I can think of, like of any recent U of A team.
Totally agree.
We've had teams with better top-end talent, guys that are lottery picks, but they just haven't panned out because, to me, there's a huge difference between like NBA potential and the ability to impact winning at the college level right now.
For sure.
So, to put a bow on it, this is a fun U of A team. We'll talk about them periodically throughout the year. I think that specific lineup has some real potential if they can stay healthy.
Yeah.
You had mentioned some drama in Vegas with F1.
Yeah, dude.
You go over that real quick?
Yeah, we'll just chat about that really, really quick before we get into Bane 3. F1 is growing rapidly in the United States and across the world, right? Which is cool. We talked about this previously. It's an awesome sport. It's super complicated, engineering at its finest, competition at its finest, where these dudes are literally hurtling themselves in cars at hundreds of miles an hour, like touching wheels together. It's an incredible sport, and because of that, they're trying to essentially have like really strong roots in the United States, and it's almost like overboard at this point. Like we have 3 races in the United States this year: Miami, Vegas, and Austin. And they went into Vegas, and there's actually been a lot of issues with Vegas. That's an upcoming race on the 18th, and there's been all these issues because apparently the locals hate it. Like it's been awful for them day to day because they're literally closing down the entire strip in order to make it a race-worthy surface.
Wait, are they racing through the strip?
They're racing in like the heart of Las Vegas.
That's insane.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like really, really cool, and it's something that F1 does. But it's like really, really cool because like these cars are so finely tuned. Like these street circuits is what they're called. Like they have to be really nice. And then
so they have to resurface the
Yes.
ground. Okay,
Yes,
so they're
like, these have
literally
to be,
like re-asphalting all this
Yes,
stuff.
yeah.
Wow.
So the locals are pissed, and then there's all this drama too because Vegas is going through like massive efforts in order to try and block the track from like passerbyers, which is totally reasonable. Like people are complaining about this. It's like no, it totally makes sense that you wouldn't want 1,000 people congregating on some walkway bridge in Vegas trying to get a glimpse of the race for free. Like obviously that's a problem from like even like a safety standpoint, you know. But the issue is the Vegas tickets were more expensive in a lot of ways than Monaco.
Jeez, man.
Yes, like the Monaco Grand Prix, which is where like money is thrown around. Mega yachts park at the Monaco Grand Prix just to watch it from like their pool, which is on the 3rd level of some
their
mega
yacht.
yacht covered in teak wood. And then they're more expensive like per ticket essentially than Monaco at Vegas. Like the entrance fee essentially is like $2,000 to watch the Vegas Grand Prix. So they've realized like nobody's buying tickets. So they've shut down the strip. They've pissed off locals. They thought all this money was going to get thrown around
And
at
it's
Vegas.
not getting thrown around.
And there's all these available tickets all of a sudden. And it's like race week essentially. So now they've cut prices. The last article that I read was down to 60% of the original cost. I've heard as low as 80% of original ticket price. And it's just super interesting because it's just like, how sustainable is Vegas for F1? So far, it does not seem like it's very sustainable.
Well, and again, like when there's that much overhead, like I always look at that in every industry. Like when you start to see the big dollar amounts get thrown around, like how is that counterbalanced by just the sheer amount of overhead that comes into basically reconfiguring a city?
Dude,
like,
and that's the other thing too. Apparently, some of it is on the back of taxpayers.
Oh God! So here we go.
Like, don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I read. So people are pissed. And just like, ask yourself this one last question. Jason, you're a millionaire. Where are you going to go watch F1? Monaco. Baby. Yeah. You're going to go to Monaco. You're going to go to Austria. You're going to go to Italy. Like you're going to go to like all these badass places. And if you do go to one of these other venues, let's say like Austin, like you can still have an amazing race experience and still enjoy it. Whereas
how much would you say that Austin cost relative to a ticket like Vegas or Monaco?
Oh, like how much does a ticket cost?
Yeah.
So probably. So there's grandstands, there's like lawn tickets. You're looking at a solid $500 to get into Austin Grand Prix.
Wait, the Austin one was 500 bones,
dude. In comparison to 2,000 for
jeez, man,
dude. And that's what was crazy.
But you were there for like 4 days though, right?
Yeah. So
basically comes out to like $125 a day.
Yes, but and like you get like packages, right? So like for example, like ours, we got free access to the Killers concert and Queen concert. Not that like I was driving to Austin for either one of those, but the Killers, like I said, man, they throw a good show.
Yeah.
But so you get a lot of experience for that. Like you get to walk around, and like you can seat yourself at whatever corner you want. So like we for the sprint, we sat at corner number 1, which is famous for like small crashes, like minor crashes. So we're like, hey, if there's gonna be a crash, not that we are hoping for a crash, but if there's gonna be a crash, like let's check it out. And thankfully no crashes happened. But it was really cool because you could literally just walk around the track as these cars are going around. It's so sick.
We went to go see where the crashes are, but thankfully there was no crashes.
Well, you get my point. Like if there's going to be one, like check it out. Thankfully that's like a relatively slow corner compared to like some of the other parts of the tracks. Like no one would die. Like I wouldn't want to go watch someone die in front of my eyes. But like for example, like there was one spin out that happened over that weekend, and it was Max Verstappen of all people. And he spun out right in front of us. And it was insane to see him like spin an entire F1 car. He did not even touch the wall.
Wow.
He literally spins his car, I think, twice and then gets it going forward again and just drives off like nothing had happened. Dude, Max Verstappen is an absolute madman.
Well, and like talk about saving millions of dollars in engineering costs.
Legitimately.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's F1 right now. But we'll see if it sticks in Vegas.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that is all we have for this particular episode. Like I said, keep an eye on the feeds. We'll release the Bane episode that we're about to record here in just a few days.
Thanks a lot.